Hello and welcome to episode 35 of the Cellarcast. That was the right one. Yeah, 35, baby. uh, I'm recording this on Sunday evening, and there is something, if you've been paying attention to the news, there's something that you're probably aware. It's a fighting game episode, guys. It's a fighting game episode. It's going to be one of these. Sorry if you guys don't like listening to it. You probably shouldn't listen to this podcast. I'm going to make that bingo card eventually. I'm going to have like a separate square for, like a separate space for Guilty Gear and just fighting games in general. I'm going to have it. It's too... One of those could be the free spot. I don't know. Leave suggestions. Leave suggestions for the bingo card below, and I'll make one. But first, I am chomping at the bit because it literally happened like an hour ago, an hour and a half ago, something like that. Did I even mention what it was? I'm not. Let's start with the comment review first. Play that song. Play the song. Hell yeah. All right. So, in our case, we've got one question coming from Lozy. Yep. One question coming from Lozy. He says, great episode, but you need to change the channel name to the Cellar Fart. Guy, it's one episode, guys. We're not gonna... I don't want it. I don't do a lot of, like, fart humor. It's kind of... I'm not a fan of, like, gross out type humor and stuff like that. It was literally just last episode. Anyway, in my case, I bought Chaos Code and other Japanese fighting games on Black Friday and Christmas. I recommend it only on sale, which is usually 80% on those games. Also from completing your Arc System collection, since they advertise it, I think. Well, I don't have an Arc Sys collection. I'd have to check. Actually, I do have of Mice and Sand, which I think I mentioned before on the podcast. It's published by ArcSys. It's not developed by them. It's published by them. But it is a really neat... It's not a fighting game or anything. It's just a little management game about, like... you got a bunch of, like, mice on, like, a sand... It's like a train that goes up through, like, a desert. And you gotta, like, go between locations and like, build rooms on your train thing. And it's really cool. I like it a lot. Of Mice and Sand. Go check it out. So I guess that is... I'm on my way. Yeah, Chaos Code. I'm like, yeah, that seems like a game that would go on. So like, please buy it. Please buy it. We need more reaction to bizarre stuff. Long live to Owen. Now, what's funny is that last episode it's the only episode of this podcast to ever get copyright claimed. Because of the song. I guess it's like an actual song, like a single from, it's Jennifer Lopez. I almost said Lawrence. Jennifer Lopez. I think it's like an actual song that she like released, like a single for the film, like a tie-in. So that was in the trailer that we reacted to last time, and the very end, and that got copyright claimed. First one that's been claimed on this show, but also this channel, as we're now on the. I like a thing in my throat. What the heck is that? Maybe it'll come up at some point. I don't know. How was Valentine's Day? She took you for a walk, or you her? Haha. Now, the first time I read that, because I do pre-read these comments. I mean, I see the comments when you guys leave them. These episodes don't get a lot of comments, so I see them. I initially read that as like taking her for a walk, or her taking me for a walk, like, you know, like you take like a pet, like a dog or something. She's a cat, so they don't usually take walks. No, actually, Cat's been like swamped at with her school work right now. She's in the she's in like a theater drama program at her college, and they're having something like a tech week, so she's there like every day after school for like hours. And so we weren't able to do anything on Valentine's Day itself, but we were able to go. She had a free day on Friday, which is our usual day. So we had a belated Valentine's Day. And no, we just we had like a it was going to be a picnic, but neither of us owned picnic blankets. So we just brought food and we ate it in her dining room or in her kitchen. And then I got her a Garfield plushie because she loves Garfield. She's a Garf girl. And she got me an Invader Zim comic. What a sweetheart. It's exactly what... I'm not being sarcastic. That was really nice. So yeah, overall we made it up almost a week later. So yep, that was Valentine's Day. Hope everyone else had a decent Valentine's Day or something. Anyway, I want to talk about motherfucking Street Fighter 6, baby. Oh, this literally happened like 2 hours ago, something like that, as I'm speaking. So I'm still processing it, sort of. So some background. About a week ago, I want to say. No, I want to say more than that, like 2 weeks ago. Capcom threw up this website. It was like the Capcom Countdown. And it was a countdown for like today, basically, when I'm recording, the 20th. And that's all it was. It was just a countdown. No real recognizable, pardon me, like hints or anything like that. Not even like data in the website. Ah, jeez. Can't stop like having. It's like I had like four like little burps in a row. There was nothing even like in the like scraped from the website, like no indication of what this could be. And basically, if you look at the timing, it was either going to be maybe Resident Evil 4 Remake or Street Fighter 6. SF6, like when you look at Capcom's schedule and their like their release history recently, those were kind of the only two projects that made sense for something like this, like some kind of hype marketing thing like this, like Monster Hunter DLC, Resident Evil 8 DLC, maybe. But like it's that's like something you kind of announce, like, hey, here's a trailer one day. This was like, okay, there's like a build up to this. So what would create like some hype? What would be worth it? Either new Resident Evil, because Resident Evil 4 is really beloved. People would get really hyped for that. They'd be really happy for it. Or a new Street Fighter. And the Street Fighter one made sense because Street Fighter 5 is basically it's been on its last legs for months, actually. So season 5 of Street Fighter 5 was not even supposed to happen. It only happened because of COVID, actually. I think they basically said as much, that they were going, when they announced the 5th season, they said, yeah, we weren't going to do this. We were going to straight go on to our next project, not announcing anything directly, but saying go on to the next project. But then basically COVID happened, and for a lot of developers, having to like transition to at-home stuff, there's a lot of like, the pipeline gets jumbled up, the processes get delayed, moving everyone to offline, figuring out how to work efficiently from home and all that. Square Enix ran into the same thing, like there were delays with the Final Fantasy XIV content patches and stuff like that. I remember that. And so they basically said, yeah, this is just like, we would be working on the next game, but we don't have the time, and we're not like up and running yet, so we're gonna just like put together 5 characters, and yeah, this is just gonna be like a fun season. And it was. Season 5 was like the best season of Street Fighter 5, and it left the game in a really good state, honestly. So Luke came out, who was the last character for that, and they basically said with Luke, yeah, Luke's basically a Street Fighter 6 character. Not specifically, but Luke is like, they called him the next generation, the future of Street Fighter. So you're like, okay, he's a Street Fighter 6 character. Also because he had certain mechanics and gameplay things going on that like have never been in the series before. Down to like his like the unit, like the system mechanics, like the V trigger, V, all that stuff. Mainly like his V trigger and stuff. It almost felt like he was ported over from another game, and they were like adapting the mechanics of that game to like the Street Fighter 5 system, like their model, right? Like almost like he was a crossover character. Like when Akuma went into Tekken, and they're like, oh, but he's got like a super meter, like from Street Fighter. That felt like what Luke was. Or like just look at any of the ways that like Smash Brothers characters, like any of the DLC characters, especially like, oh, here's them adapting this thing from their series. Like Hero, oh, he literally has the little menu of spells that comes up like in his RPGs. That's what Luke felt like very like obviously different. So this countdown is happening, and it's timed specifically. People, just did the math on it, and basically they were like, oh, it's gonna hit 0 the day/night of the Capcom Pro Tour's finals. So the Street Fighter V finals for CPT, which is the big Street Fighter tournament. It's like, oh shit, it's probably Street Fighter 6. There's a good chance, there's a decent chance. The timing is too like specific, but obviously we don't know for sure. So tonight comes, the night comes. We've got a few hours. And this was like funny in sort of a sad way. It was cool and sort of. So basically, the finals was between two players. Daigo Umehara, who should need no introduction. He's one of the most legendary fighting game players. Honestly, like just esports players of all time. He's Evo Moment 37 guy, right? One of the most famous, legendary competitors of all time, best Street Fighter players. He's been in the game longer than anyone else, basically. Versus Kawano. And Kawano is this new up-and-coming player. He's like in his early 20s, like very early 20s. I think he and I are actually like around the same age. And Kawano is like, he's in the last few seasons, he's been on a tear. Recently, he's just been like showing up, and like the first kind of like really huge breakout, like, okay, best player in the world was like Punk for Street Fighter V, and I think Kawano is maybe gonna be like the second one. Punk was like the American player, and Kawano is like the Japanese player, I think, of like, okay, these are like the top guy. Punk was in I don't know, this might have been CPT Japan. I'm not my memory's hazy. I don't follow competitive SF super closely. But Punk has honestly just kind of stopped competing recently because he just doesn't give a fuck. And he doesn't want to play online tournaments anymore. Which respect, he's like, I just want to play Guilty Gear. That's my Punk impression. I fucking love Punk. Anyway, so it's the finals match. And to give you some context, the previous, I think, there was a previous tournament, it might have been CPT, where you had literally the exact same grand finals. It was Daigo versus Kawano. And you have to understand, so Daigo won that finals. Kawano got close, but Daigo won. Now you have to understand, Daigo is like in his 40s. He's like literally, I think he's exactly 40 years old. He's been competing since before Kawano was born. And he's still fucking in like the top. I don't think there's been a single season of the game that he hasn't been like at least top 20. He was kind of struggling for a bit, but then he came back, and he's just been consistently strong for longer than like anyone else. And after he won, Daigo's a super chill, very zen guy. He's really interesting. And he basically tweeted out something along the lines of like, It was a good victory. I'm going to take a day to rest, and then tomorrow I'm on to the training for the next one, something like that. And then at the very end, he goes, Kawano's gotten so strong. And it was like, oh my god. It's like, this is like, fighting games is just anime. You're like, oh my god. He's like the old grandmaster. And he's like challenging, he's like encouraging the next generation to like defeat him. Like, if you can surpass me, he's gonna pass the torch on. And so the grand finals come, and it's Daigo and Kawano again. And Kawano shows up, and he starts, and he's not fucking around. It's a first to 5. It's a first to 5 match, and Kawano takes the first 4 games, just like bam, bam, bam. I think Daigo got 1 in. Daigo got 1 or 2 in, but Kawano's just bam, 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 taking these games. And it's getting like, oh my god, Kawano is like so close to like winning. He's getting so close. He's playing out of his fucking mind. And Daigo, it's like he's like, it's like that. Oh, is Daigo washed up? What's going on? And then Daigo starts coming back, and he takes like, here's another one. Here's another round, and he gets another game, and then they're at match point again. It's 1 round to 1 round. Kawano's got 4 games. Kawano got 4 wins. Daigo's got 3. If Daigo gets this next round, they're gonna go to game what is that, 9, I think, or 8, I think. I'm bad at math. And Kawano is like, all he needs is 1 round. All he needs is 1 round, and he's the champion, and he did it. And it's like this fucking crazy. It was so wild watching this, like, just like the energy, the passion from both players. It was like a symbolic matchup, right? It was literally like the old versus the young, and like the next generation. And he's fucking gonna go the distance, and he's gonna like prove himself against like the master. And it's like this fucking Kawano's like anime theme song is playing. It's going crazy, and everyone in the chat is like, dude, what's the countdown gonna be? Is it gonna be Street Fighter like 6, or do you think it's gonna be like Resident Evil? I think it's gonna be I think it's gonna be the Resident Evil DLC. And it's like, fuck. I see exactly what Capcom wanted. And I just think that they just like accidentally sort of like overshadowed Kawano's, like, I'm sure he doesn't care, cause like, oh, by the way, he fucking won. He won the thing. He popped off. Dude, between rounds, that dude was pounding water. He was fucking sweating. He was sweating so hard between rounds. He was just cluck, 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 freaking out. And he wins. He pops off. He's like, fuck yes, I did it. This is probably like one of the biggest moments of his life. Like, of his life. This is like a milestone achievement. He's literally like literally, if next fucking 80, 90 years he's alive, this is a fucking highlight moment. And everyone's like, oh, cool, so they're gonna show what the countdown is now. I just think it's so funny. And they basically, so they didn't have like a minutes or seconds. It was just on the countdown. It was just like days and hours, I think. And I think that's basically because like they were pretty sure that it was gonna go. It wasn't gonna be like exactly. It was like it was time for like exactly 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And by like, the announcement didn't happen until, because they finished the game, and then they got to do the analyst thing, and they had like 5 analysts and all this stuff. And so it's like, you know, there's like the wrap up, and now we throw it to the previews. And so like that was like, yeah, they were probably ensuring that's only literally like an hour 45 minutes later. After the countdown timer, it was literally stuck at 1 hour. And it was like 1 hour and then it didn't go to 0. Yeah, it was hype. It was super hype, and congrats to Kawano. He fucking did it, dude. He did it. He's the champ. He's the last champion of Street Fighter V. That's fucking sick. That's really cool. And it fits because he's the new blood overtaking the old, you know? And then immediately afterwards, they throw it to Capcom Fighting Collection. I want to touch on that briefly. So yeah, Capcom Fighting Collection. This was basically the appetizer announcement, which was a good choice. It was a good move. I love this. Capcom's really good about keeping their old stuff in circulation. Generally. They know how to cash in on legacy for the most part in terms of reselling stuff to their fans. So the fighting, I think it's just called the Capcom Fighters Collection, yeah. So it's for like the 35th anniversary Street Fighter, and it's got like 10 different games on it. 5 of those are just Darkstalkers. Darkstalkers has an incredibly messy history of sequels and updates, and sequels having multiple updates that came out. Like Darkstalkers 2 got an update after Darkstalkers 3 was out, and just complete mismanagement. But at least 2 of them have never been released in the US, and they are now getting release officially with this collection, so that's really cool. There's also some other stuff that's never been released, like or never been released on console, like I believe Red Earth. I don't know if Red Earth has been released on console. That's an obscure one. The other one is Cyberbots. Cyberbots is, if you know, it's Jin from Marvel vs. Capcom and Marvel Capcom 2. It's the guy in the cool kind of like sci-fi outfit with the shoulder spikes and the headband, and he summons the robot fist in his super. It's that guy, and he has the weird tornado move. That's Cyberbots, so that's cool. It's like a mech fighting game, basically. All of them, also like a puzzle fighter, some other stuff, some good stuff. Basically, all the more. If you're a Capcom fighting games fan, everything except for Power Stone and Rival Schools is on this, basically. So all the 2D fighting games, if you're a fan of those, that's sick. You got a collection for you. Crazy value. I can't imagine it's going to be super expensive. And it's also releasing multi-platform and with rollback. Fucking sick. Every single game's got rollback. And every game has a training mode, including the ones that did not have ones initially because they never got console ports. And also like the final revision of Street Fighter 2, like Hyper Street Fighter 2. Which was like made, which I think itself is actually just kind of a collection, if I'm not wrong. Is that the one where you can pick multiple versions, characters, or is that the Anniversary Collection? I don't remember. Anyway, it's also got a Street Fighter 2 on there, so that's cool. Yeah, so dope. And then, so it's like, okay, this is cool. This is nice. I'm glad this is here. And then, it's a fucking, I'm gonna go to the trailer. Hang on. I'm gonna pull it up. Firefox is being super slow. Let's see. It's just a teaser. It's not a real trailer. It's just a teaser. It's fucking, there's a fist clenched with like the glove thing. You're like, oh my god. It looks crazy. And then, oh my god, it's an arm. Look at these fucking graphics. This thing is absolutely on the RE engine, which is done. That was the one that was developed for Resident Evil 7 and 8, and also DMC5 uses it, and all of Capcom's, a lot of Capcom's new stuff uses it. Dude, there's like just this shot of Ryu's chest. And it's like, you can literally see like his muscles move as he breathes. I'm looking at like his upper shoulders and like his trap muscles, and like he's got that like kind of like sort of like skin tag type stuff, just like that weird kind of bumpy skin stubble that you get when you get like older. He's got a little bit of it on his arm. It's obviously like, so then there's steam just pouring off of his fucking body. He's in like a sauna. Oh my god. And then there's this shot. There's just sweat dripping off of him, and then it pans over and it's, oh my god, it's Luke. And then there's like a shot for like 1 second of Ryu's face. His fist clenches. Well, Luke's disgusting, weird, deformed arm. Oh, there's this shot of fucking Ryu's face. Oh my god, I can't believe this. These graphics. Just for like a second. And guess what? It's Beard Ryu. It's Hot Ryu. Let's go. I'm yelling. Maybe my family doesn't want me to yell at 11:30 at night. It's Hot Ryu, guys. Let's go. This was the design that it was like a costume in Street Fighter V, and it wasn't the canonical, look for Ryu. It's Ryu where the top half of his gi is gone, and like around the waist it's kind of like ripped up, and he's got like a big ass beard. Not a big ass beard, but he's got like full facial hair, and it's basically like this is Ryu after he's gone and trained in the mountains, and he's come down, and he's got a beard, and he hasn't been able to shave. And this was referred to as Hot Ryu. It's a sick design. It's really good. It's like, it's really, it reminds me a lot of Terry in like Garo, where it's like, you know, Terry, he's got his classic like the red vest and the kind of red trucker cap and the jeans, and then in Garo they were like, how do we take this iconic design and kind of like age him up and do something different but that works for the character? And they're like, first of all, let's give him some facial hair. Let's have him cut his hair so he doesn't have the ponytail. His hair's a little shorter. And he's got a cool-ass bomber jacket. And he still totally feels like that, like rugged, kind of like American guy that he sort of like initially was, but just more updated and like aged up. And you're like, that's a sick redesign. That's a great redesign. Beard Ryu is like the same thing, where it's like, okay, you want to show like an older, more experienced, like trained up. Whoa, just fucking smacked off. That thing that showed up on the. I saw that show up on the sound on the what is this called? Like the audio feedback. I don't know. I saw that show up. I just smacked the fuck out of my pop filter. Anyway, this is him like trained up and like older, and like that's cool, and it's like, I don't know, tasteful. It's like a subtle, cool way to age him up, because like he looks a little more like, I mean, obviously having like the kind of more tattered up clothes, it really just looks like he's retreated from society. And because Ryu's whole character is just, he's trying to like find the answer. He's trying to find the meaning. He's like enlightenment through battle. And he's doing that by like honing himself and his body and all that. So the idea that like his clothes are just kind of like falling away, but he's also super fucking ripped, is like a really good way to show that. He looks great. He's got these big ass eyebrows. you can kind of see one of them. The other one's a little obscured by the lighting. He's got this big ass eyebrow. And it's like kind of like going over his headband. That's funny. Yeah. He looks sick. And then opposite him is Luke. This is interesting because it's like, obviously, so I saw an interesting comment. Pardon me. I read an interesting comment. So if you look at Luke in this teaser and Luke in SF5, it's two different designs, and it's pretty clearly like I didn't quite think about it this way until this comment pointed it out. But Luke in SF5 is almost for sure an early like sketch prototype version of this Luke. And this Luke is the real one. This is the real final design, right? Because like you have to imagine that when they started work, fighting game characters take a lot of work to make. And that most of that is visuals. Most of that is the model and the animation, and that shit takes time. Like, that takes a lot of time. So what they were probably doing is they almost for sure had some work done on Street Fighter 6. This game has probably been in development for a while, at least like pre-development or pre-production. And they probably have a lot. I'm willing to bet, if he's kind of being posed as the new main character or a new leading character, they probably have like a mountain of different sketches for him, right? And when they decided on season 5, because remember, Luke wasn't shown off for like a while. They showed off the first 4 characters all the way up to Akira, and then they kept the last one a secret. They literally showed off the first 4 characters of season 5 in one go, and they said, well, this last one is a secret. And then, like, I forgot how much time there was between his reveal and his release, but then they were like, hey, here's Luke. I'm willing to bet that had to do with, basically, they were like, he's still in progress. And I think they were like, oh, fuck it. Okay, he's going to look different in 6. Let's just grab the most recent design that we're kind of looking at, and let's just lock it in. Let's just make him look like that. That's going to be his design in 5. Fuck it. Okay, we're just going to grab that, and that's what he's going to be in 5. We aren't going to talk about it. We aren't going to talk about how he looks different in 6. It's fine. And so Luke in 5, I can definitely see how his concept art translated to the model. I just don't think that the model looks that good. Luke is really weird in 5 for me. Luke is really weird because I think his visual look is really off-putting and weird. I hate the tattoos on his arms. The grid of stars on his biceps or his forceps. Is that the one? Yeah, forceps. On the forearm, right? Is the forearm the one that's closer to your hand? Jeez. I'm dumb. I don't like the stars. I don't like the star tattoos there. They give me really weird. I was like, what is this? It gives me that, I forget what it's called. It's that fear of holes. Like pores on the body. If you're like, oh, what the fuck, pores? Who's scared of that? I forget the word for it. But if you look it up, you go to Google Images, you're like, oh, it's one of those things you close it in a second. Just giant holes on the body. It's like a really fucking visceral form of body horror kind of thing. And his fucking arm stars give me a lot of those vibes. Just I don't know what it is. In general, I don't like tattoos in general. That might just be a me thing. Like, it's probably a bit of personal bias, but like, I don't think tattoos in general. No hate to anyone with them, but personally, I don't think that like, I don't like the way that ink looks on skin. I think it's extremely unappealing, and I generally don't mind it in like, like a 3D model or something. Like, it's fine. It's got, I mean, it's different. 3D model character's skin doesn't look like human skin. That's my thing. I just think it looks weird. I don't really like it. So like, generally it doesn't bother me, but I think it's that combined with like the weird fact that it's like a grid of stars, but it's like on the part of his arm that's like it's an arm. It's like it curves. It's like a almost cylindrical kind of shape. So it's not like the grid is never like actually flat. It's really weird. Like, why did they do that? I can see how it would look in concept art and how it might look fine in concept art, but I think translated to 3D doesn't look great. And now his new, I should mention, for as much as I dislike Luke's visual design, the other end of that is I really like his animations. I think his animations do a really good job at like selling what kind of a character he is, that he's like a scrappy kind of like younger fighter with like, he's kind of like, he has like a little bit of technique, but he's mostly just like raw power and energy and stuff like that. I think that like in that sense, he does a really good job at like selling that aspect of his character, but the actual design is like, yeah, this could have gone through a few more drafts. And I think this is the few more drafts in 6, because I mean, if you look at it, there were some other, so like I'm at the shot where it's just like, it's like you can see Luke's like upper half in his arm. So he has this weird tattoo in 5 that like, it's like a wing shape, and then it goes up to like his shoulders, and it turns into like a big star on his shoulders, and it just looks kind of like weird. I don't know. It actually probably looks better than the one on his arms, but it is just, I don't know. I always thought it looked really strange, like a little messy. I'm not sure. Luke's whole tattoo business in SF5 is kind of weird. Now looks like what the real Luke, we'll call 5 Luke, like prototype Luke. Now he's wearing like, it looks like a hoodie, but kind of like a boxing hoodie, where it's like kind of loose and doesn't have any sleeves. And then underneath that, he's just wearing like an undershirt that has that same pattern of like the wings and the stars in the exact same spaces that his tattoos are. It's just on a shirt, and I think that looks way better. I think that's much more of like a, I don't know, it's a much better look. I don't know. Gonna Ryu's toes look a little weird. It's like a shot of his toes curling. It's a little weird. There's like a shot of Luke's like arm. He's got like scars. Like the detail is crazy. Yeah, so he's missing the arm tattoos, which is fine. I'm glad. He still does the weird thing. This is the other thing with like the weird kind of body horror angle of him in 5, is that like when he has the move where he like puffs up his arms, literally like Popeye, and he's like, and his arms like kind of they swell up and kind of like get this like red glow. It looks kind of like weirdly. It's like a really cartoonish thing. Like I could imagine it in like a Darkstalkers, speaking of, or maybe something like Guilty Gear. You know what would be great for that? Fucking like Skullgirls. It's that kind of cartoonish thing, but it's a little, the models, like the proportions of the humans, it's a little too realistic for like that weird morphing thing. Same with like when Dhalsim does his like super, and it's like his stomach just expands. It's like, ooh, that's a little weird. But it looks like they sort of, it is a little like his fucking veins get huge. It's sort of gross. I wonder how that'll look in game. His veins get all huge, and like all this heat rises up. And then the best moment in this trailer, is right when they both they square up, and it's the moment when the colors come in. You know exactly what I'm talking about if you watch it. It's the moment when the colors come in. Luke, okay, here's the one weird thing about Luke. He's got way too much teeth going on. It looks fake. It looks edited. He's got way too much teeth, and it makes him look fucking weird. Like they forgot to give him like an upper lip. It's really strange. I would have preferred like much more of like a more subtle smirk, but like every shot of him is fucking top teeth are just out, and it looks really weird. It's really strange. But this shot where he like pulls his arm back and like the screen just changes. I'm going frame by frame. And it's like we've been in these super realistic graphics, and then like boom, like these paint splatters come in, and like this whole filter gets applied, and all the shading changes, so that like now some of the shadows are like these super highlighted like cyans. And then it cuts to Ryu, and then he pulls back, and it instead of being it's the same effect, but it's like that sketchy ink brush look that Street Fighter 4 had, and 5 kind of did. And it's like, oh shit. The logo is really boring. This logo is really boring. I want them to add a little more color to it. It's really boring, and it's a shame. Yeah, visually this looks crazy. So obviously it's like the biggest thing, because it's the only thing that we can really talk about right now. We don't know anything about the gameplay. We don't know anything about what besides the fact that there's a couple guarantees on the roster, but I mean there's so little that we know about this game yet that all we can really talk about is the visuals, because this is probably, this is almost definitely better than it's going to look in-game. That's, a given. This is like a pre-rendered trailer, but we do know from, just the other RE Engine games, that these games look really gorgeous, even in actual gameplay. So it's not going to be too far off, and it's definitely like a general indicator for the direction that they're going. And it's really interesting because like people are sort of torn on this, and I can see that. Some people are torn. I think a lot of people right now are hyped, but the realism is something that Street Fighter's never gone for, and interestingly enough, it was actually one of the directions they were thinking about for Street Fighter 5. So in development, they were thinking about going towards a much more realistic style, and I think you can even find like screenshots from that development. Let me see, like Street Fighter 5 development. Yeah, you can find, it's like concept art, some like in-game mock-ups. There's like this one of, it looks like Ryu versus, that's got to be Bison. That's all. There's really only one image, and it's from like, I think it looked like an art book. So, yeah, that was like one of the directions that they were thinking about, and then they said no, and this is part of the reason that SF5 had a very kind of troubled development, if you will, is that like they had this big concept, and then they just kind of ended up scrapping that. And one thing that I sort of lament about 5 is that 5 just kind of looks like an upgraded version of Street Fighter 4. To me, and this is just speaking personally, Street Fighter 5 doesn't have that much of like a huge visual identity compared to 4. Like there's a bit, obviously, like the design of the menus is different, the UI and all that, and there are changes, right? It's different, but it's not like when I think of the difference between like Street Fighter 2 and Street Fighter Alpha, it's like, whew, this is different. This is very different. Even going from 2 to 3, 3 is so wildly different in terms of just like feel and tone. 5 sort of just felt like a further development of 4 in that sense of like presentation wise, and in some ways sort of a step back. A lot of the visuals in 5 are as the game went on, the newer characters and all that looked much better. But like some of the early characters from 5 do look a little rough. I always thought that a lot of them looked like ceramic. Like they looked like their skin was ceramic. Just had this weird kind of like look in the light. Yeah, so there's a discussion about this shift in art style towards the photorealism, and I'm fine with it personally. I think like artistically, those other styles of Street Fighter are always going to be there. I'm just interested in like something kind of different. That's sort of gonna like, I think what it needs is that the series needs kind of like a cleaner visual identity, or just something that you look at and you go, whoa, in a second. Kind of like you look at Mortal Kombat, you're like, that's Mortal Kombat. You look at Guilty Gear, you're like, oh, that's Guilty Gear. You look at, or any Arc Sys game for that matter, you look at freaking Tekken. Tekken's a good example. You're like, okay, yeah, Tekken has like a look to it. I think the SF series needs a little more of that. Traditionally, it's been that kind of cartoony thing. But like, here's the thing. I think that if Capcom wants to make this really big, like actually like kind of make a splash and turn heads and bring their fighting game division back, I think that going this direction was actually a really good idea. And I'll explain why, as opposed to just moving on. So like, there was something that Maximilian Dude said that I thought was very, very apt, because it's literally what I just mentioned, what I was just talking about, is that when SF5 was first showed off, the one bit of feedback that he had to the team and to Ono was, outside of gameplay, outside of all that, was from like 10 feet away, this game just looks like Street Fighter 4. And like once you get close, it's like, oh no, that's obviously a different game. It's clearly a different game. I'm going to burp again. Like you can see the next gen upgrades to the visuals. You can see just kind of the different stylistic things that set it apart. You're like, okay, this is a different game. But from a distance, it doesn't have that same like jump effect as going from like 2 to alpha or alpha to 3 or one of those, It doesn't have that. Even going from like, let's say Guilty Gear Xrd to Strive, right? You could look at both of those games from 10 feet away and you could tell which one was which. Just from the colors and the fidelity and like the animations and just all this stuff, you could tell. And 5 didn't really have that. That just immediate leap at like, here's the new thing. And I think that like when you're talking about games, just anything really in general, I think like I've spoken before about making the statement. That's why I love the intro to Third Strike so much. It's like you hear it and you're just like, oh my god, because it makes a statement. It's just bold and confident, and it's like, dude, this is our style. It's so cool. It's so sick. Sometimes I just go rewatch the intro. I just rewatch the intro to Third Strike. I do it like 5 times because I'm like, dude, this is so cool. I don't even play this game. This is such a cool intro. Just has this like magic to it with like the boldness. And if you really want to like turn heads with a new installment in something, I think you need to do something that you're going to look at and be like, holy shit, this is a new game, right? Like, there is not a chance, no matter what this game ends up looking like, there is not a chance in hell that you're going to glance across a room or a whatever and say, and just kind of glaze over, because that's the problem. Is it has like I think if you want like new people to get or to get interested in it, 5 had sort of this like glaze over effect where you just, if you're not already interested in the series, yeah, you might become interested in it with a new entry, but like for the most part, you're just going to be like, yeah, I know what Street Fighter looks like, and then you see 5 and you're like, it's a new Street Fighter, they're making another one. It's like Call of Duty. It's like when Call of Duty just became a yearly series, and every single game, it's like you see the trailer or something, excuse me, and you see like gameplay, and you're like, is that the one from is that a new one? Is that someone from last year? Is it older? Was there one this year? Yeah, they're everywhere. They're every year. Is the new one out yet? Is it like what is that? Is that called? That is COD, right? It has that like effect. Isn't there a Donkey video where he's just talking about like the brand new Call of Duty, but he's actually just using every single cut is like every single clip that he cuts to is from like a different Call of Duty from like the last 7 years, and like you literally, like, besides looking at the UI, you literally can't tell. You literally can't tell. They all just kind of blend together. They just blur together. The only time that they paid attention, or that didn't happen, was like when they jumped to like the sci-fi stuff, and people hated it because they basically the moral here is that the reason that happened with Call of Duty, I think, is that they just oversaturated the fuck out of it. The problem when you oversaturate a series is that there becomes a point where there's no winning. Because if you do the same thing, people are going to say, this is just the same thing over again. And if you do something radically different, people are going to complain that it's different because it's not what they're used to. So you're like, well, what do I do? What you do is you don't get into that situation in the first place, and you don't oversaturate your series with yearly releases. Please stop doing that. It almost killed Mega Man. And Mega Man changed a lot, between every sub-series. Every single one, like different series of Mega Man has like really interesting like differences and substantial changes. Yeah, you need to like, obviously, Street Fighter's not going to have that problem because it's been, has it been 7 years? Jesus. Jeez Louise. It's been like 7 years since Street Fighter V came out, or was, even first showed off. So, it doesn't have the oversaturation problem. So I think you can go in a new direction. And I think the fact that, like, it is so different is that people have this idea, because it's such a culturally ingrained franchise, people have this idea, like, they know what Street Fighter looks like. They're like, yeah, I played that in the arcade. I played SF2 in the arcade. Oh, I played Street Fighter. I had Street Fighter Alpha on my, like, on console. Or, I remember that. I played a lot of Street Fighter 4 when that came out. Like, they have this idea, and then if they see something totally different that has this, like, new art style, they're gonna be like, yo, what the fuck is going on with Street Fighter? Let me look into this shit. And they might, I would always say, I still think that, like, fighting games have such a larger, like, potential audience, even though the fact that they've actually been growing in the last few years, I think. And when I say few years, I mean literally like 2 years. They've actually been kind of growing again. But I think that, like, the potential audience of people who could enjoy them is way more than the people who do. I don't think everyone, I mean, obviously not everyone would, but I think the potential audience is a lot more than is now, than are into it now. So like, yeah. Let's see. Talking about the art style. Well, even more, like, we're not entirely sure what the art style is going to look like. Like, we know that it's going to be in this kind of realistic, it's going to have, I am imagining that characters are going to have a pretty high level of detail. I'm imagining that, I hope that the clothing is animated better than 5. 5 has this really bad problem of putting like a lot of the clothing, animating it, not even animating it, basically just making it a physics object and just having it be left up to the whims of the engine, which leads to, I mean, look at Necalli. Go look up Necalli, Necalli in SF5. Look at that character for like a minute, just in motion. Not even a minute, like 30 seconds, and you're like, look at his hair, you know? This was not a good idea. It looks bad. To be fair, a lot of things look fine with it, like more of the normal clothes look fine. There are just a lot of like things that just feel sort of cheap, you know, like when you hover over Laura in the character select screen and like you select her hair clips through her shoulder. You're like, really? Guys, come on. This is just like some polish. It's just these little things that make the game feel cheaper. I hope that they have the time and the budget to avoid that, to actually do the things that make the game look and feel like a real, like a true AAA game, right? Maybe not AAA, right? But up to like a baller standard, up to the standard of Capcom's other games. I mean, you look at Resident Evil 8, 7, and 8, and DMC 5, and Monster Hunter. It's like they don't have this problem. Why does this game look so much worse? In just these like little ways, just little attention to detail things that like would have taken someone maybe like a few hours. I don't know how long it would take, but let's just say, for instance, like it would take someone a day or a few hours to fix these problems, but they don't have the time. They got to move on to the next thing because such and such, you know, whatever the circumstances are. So the other thing is that, like, in this trailer, we don't even see, I think one of the important things is that, like, okay, well, you see Luke's arm do this weird veiny fucking thing. It's, like, gross. So it kind of implies that, like, yeah, they're still going to have, like, I mean, you can't do Street Fighter without these kind of, like, fantastical elements of, like, people throwing fireballs and stuff like that, but you can present it in a more, detailed way or something. Like, I'm imagining, you know, Ryu throws a Hadouken and you literally see like the fire like pretty quickly, right? But this is going to all happen really fast, but if you could slow down the animation, right, and you could see the fire literally like swirling towards his hands and like building up and like kind of maybe like flowing down his arm a bit, and then he like throws it and the flame effects look fucking great. And all that, like that's kind of like the level that I'm imagining. It's just going to be kind of like an amped up kind of reality. I'm curious to know, because the thing is that, like, this is literally just a teaser of Luke and Ryu in a black void with nothing around them. And I think what's going to be even more telling about the art direction of this game, pardon me, is the backgrounds. I think the backgrounds do a big job of just informing the overall feeling of a game. I mean, like, okay, so I've been playing KOF 15 recently. It came out the other day. I was hopping in. One of my favorite things about KOF is that, like, how many of the stages just have like people in the background like cheering on the fight. Not even like there's some stages that are like, you know, a stadium where there's like an audience and stands, But there's a lot where it's like, I love that stage. I think it's the USA stage. It's like New York in KOF 2002, where it's literally just taking place on like the street, like a giant New York street, on like the crosswalk, and there's just like a band set up on on like literally just on the street, and there's just a crowd of people around just cheering on this like crazy fight going on. I think that stuff's great, and I think you look at that and you feel the vibe of KOF through its stages, right? You feel like what it's going for. So many, like, this is a tournament. That's its feeling. Like it's a part of the presentation. What am I trying to say? It's like the context of the world that the characters are in, right? What kind of a world is this? You look at another game like, I don't know. I was gonna say Dragon Ball Fighters, but like that's too obvious because is it gonna be from Dragon Ball? Huh. I wonder. Blaze Blue is a good example. Blaze Blue takes place in a crazy like anime fantasy steampunk world with like magic and giant gears and clock towers and fucking big structures and all this weird stuff, right? With like machinery and all that, and magic, sorcery, and you can look at the characters and you can kind of get that. You look at like, Nine, she's a witch, and then like you look at like other characters like, this kid's got a robot. You look at Relius and like, Relius, he's like a magic kind of like clockwork scientist guy. And then you look at another character and you're like, Jin, he's like anime sword fantasy guy. And, you can glean it from looking at the whole roster. But really, I think where you see that is like in the background. Let me look up some of the backgrounds from Blaze Blue stages. Right? Like, let's say like monorail. Here's one that comes up. It's just it's like on a big steampunk train that's just traveling, and is it traveling? I don't remember if it's traveling on this stage. But like the sky is all overcast. There's all this crazy machinery in the background. It looks like it's some kind of like loading bay. And then you got another one, and it's in like a hidden field. This one's called. It's in like a forest with this like, it's like a bamboo forest with these like rock formations. It's at like night. It's like kind of mystical feeling. Then you look at like, let's see, it's like a more magic-y one. Rachel's stage. I love Rachel's stage. It's in like a crazy Halloween castle in like a field of roses. It looks awesome. And you just see all of these and these other ones where it's like, a good one is like when you see these stages that take place in kind of like forested areas, but with like giant remnants of like machinery or like magical looking stuff in the background, and you see that and it all kind of comes together, and you're like, I understand what kind of a world this is, even if I don't know the specific systems or types of technology or magic or even the characters who inhabit it. You can look at the backgrounds and you just get a feel for it. Same thing with like Guilty Gear, right? You're like, this is like post-apocalyptic, sort of rebuilt, weird, same kind of like it's like a heavy metal weird thing, like world. You get the vibe from it, and it's got this kind of weird, with this weird sort of like supernatural undertone to a bit of it. I don't know, like magic exists in Guilty Gear. Like it is a thing. It's just like, actually it's the main thing. It's like magic technology, right? I was blanking on that, right? Like you understand like the art style through the backgrounds and through the world that it's presenting to you. So I'm actually really curious to see what the stages look like, because I think that's actually going to influence a lot of the what they're thinking, like what they're going for where they're going, literally where we're going, where are we traveling to fight. I'm curious what the music's going to be like. There's a lot of things that I'm curious about. One of those, I wanted to really quickly touch off on like a potential roster. Looking at it, I'm just looking at this gorgeous Blaze Blue artwork. Yeah, Blaze Blue stages are just gorgeous. A potential roster, it's like, it's really hard to call because SF5 launched with 16 characters. How many launched in 4? Launch characters. Like in the console version, because it was on arcade first. Let's see, arcade roster. Street Fighter 4 was initially blah blah blah. The 4 characters. The final. Come on, just tell me how many characters. Okay, so arcade roster, returning characters, bosses, and hidden characters. How many is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And are the boss characters playable? Well, not in the arcade. So about 16 console arcade characters, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 added in the home version. Whoa. 6 added in the home version, so that's 22. It's 22. Is Sakura Cammy voiced by Caitlin Glass? Really? Oh, and in 5. Oh, wow. She's Mina's voice actress. Wow. Anyway. So that had about like 20... it's about like 22 characters at launch for 4, and then 5 had 16. I have no idea what a starting roster would look like for 6 if they're really trying to like beef up the budget. 16, let's be conservative and say 20. Or maybe not conservative, but like let's meet in the middle and say 20. Like what 20 characters would be in there? I'd imagine, I mean, I'm not going to spend like a three days on this, but I mean, obvious picks, it's like, there's kind of like characters that have to be in the base roster, but it's weird, my glass stuck to my coaster for a second. There's characters that have to be in like a base launch roster of every game. It's like Ryu, Ken, Chun-Li, every single one, maybe, probably Guile. Guile has a good shot. Those are kind of like the 4. Obviously, Ryu and Chun-Li are honestly like the faces now of the series. Like every single crossover that they've done with another game, like I mean in Fortnite, you know, it was Ryu and Chun-Li, and part of that has to do with the fact that like Ken is just a lot of people still see him as just like a Ryu clone, which he's not gameplay wise. Like they have a similar move set, but they're like totally different gameplay wise. But like a lot of people still see him as that. So if you're adding, you know, who are the 2 leads? Well, let's pick the 2 characters who have like a big like visual and gameplay like that are clearly different, right? That's going to show like two very different characters from the game. So it's Ryu and Chun-Li, so you get the male and the female lead. Because Chun-Li is, and basically the second most. He's like the second or third most important character in terms of like, not talking about like plot or anything, but just like recognizability. So like those, they learned their lesson from 3. They're never going to launch a game without Ryu, Ken, and at least without Ryu and Ken. Chun wasn't there till Third Strike. Akuma got in Street Fighter 3 before Chun. It's kind of interesting. Just kind of thought about that. Yeah. Probably like. I'll say like the ones that have a high likelihood of coming back in the base roster would be like Ryu, Ken, Chun-Li, Guile, Cammy. I could see like obviously Luke is gonna be there. I'm gonna say there's gonna be like 3 or 4 new characters. So that's another 4. So that's another 4. So that's like, yeah, it's about half the roster, and then the other half would be, let's say, I don't know, probably a smorgasbord from throughout the series. I want Saddam back, or Saddam. I think it's Saddam. He's cool. He hasn't been in a game since like the Alpha series. I'd like to see him back, even if I don't like how he plays. I think he's cool. He's a big samurai guy. Why have we not had him back? Not even in like 4? Come on, guys. Saddam. There's another like a lot of the Alpha cast. Hang on. Let's look at the Alpha cast. Most of them have actually made a return. Everyone except for put the dolls in there. Put the dolls in there. I want the dolls back in the game. I want them playable. I think they're cool. DJ. DJ could come back. It's kind of hard to pick like. I have no idea. Like, I'm sure like the process for every character is different. For like why they want them back. Fei Long is another good one. Well, Akuma's probably got to be in there. We don't need Birdie. Eagle would be cool. Eagle would be cool to have. Technically from Street Fighter 1, but also from he was only playable in like I think CVS 2. Another good pick would be like probably someone from like they're probably gonna add another Final Fight character. Final Fight is basically just a Street Fighter series now. And I think like maybe Guy could come back. I could see that. Yeah. That's my like preliminary. I don't have any. Sagat maybe. The big thing with 6, and that's kind of interesting, is that Street Fighter for the last 2 games has actually been stuck in a prequel. So if you didn't know this, Street Fighter 3 came out and it was like the new generation, right? That's why all the characters were different. It had none of the previous roster except for Ryu and Ken, and those characters were added late into development because Capcom did an arcade test in Japan, and people fucking hated it because it wasn't Street Fighter and they didn't recognize anyone, and they were like, shit, we gotta add Ryu and Ken at least because we can reuse their animations. Because they were positioning Alex as the new protagonist, and he really didn't work out well. So it flopped really hard, and basically when 4 came out, the series kind of went underground for a bit. And then in 2009, when 4 came out, that was like Ono. That was Ono's first Street Fighter, I think. And he was like, he loved Street Fighter 2. And so basically, almost the entire base roster of Street Fighter 4 is literally just Street Fighter 2. And that's because Street Fighter 4 is a prequel. So the timeline actually goes Alpha 1. Pretty sure Alpha comes before 1. So come before 2. I'm not sure. Anyway, it goes 2, 4, 5, 3. 3 takes place the furthest in the future. After that, they were like, ooh, and they jumped back, and they said, nope, were happening right after 4, so it's all the characters you love from Street Fighter 2, and they all look the same, and yeah, it's back, baby, and it was a hit. And then with 5, they were like, we're still not gonna move past 3, and 5 still kind of meanders about, and I think that's probably why Beard Ryu is not like the canonical one, because he's not like that in 3. So basically what they kind of like dragged their feet on getting past Street Fighter 3. And now we're finally, so I think like by the end, pardon me, I think that by the end of Street Fighter 5, like all the character stories and all that, which kind of fill in stuff during and after like the main like campaign story, I think by the end we're at or just before / during New Generation. So like we can't stall any longer. We gotta go past Street Fighter 3 into the future, baby. So now Ryu can have his beard and look all hot. And the characters can like grow and be new and look different. 5 honestly did a decent job of showing a lot of characters progressing. I think Cody's redesign is great. I think Sakura's redesign is great. I love how Sakura looks in 5. I think her design is so cool. Who else looks good? Oh, I just realized. What the fuck is like Blanca gonna look like in this game? What is the big monster man going to look like? That's what I'm curious about, because like you look at the previous cartoony art style of the series, and things like generally things work, right? Like characters with sort of a little goofy proportions, kind of silly maybe looking clothes or designs or something like that. You look at Zangief and he's a gigantic man, and you're like, yeah, that's fine. But like even in 5, there's certain designs like Abigail that just like really stretch the art style to its limit. Abigail almost looks like he comes from like some kind of like parody. Abigail looks like that comic of like the guy with the really big head and the guy with the really little head with the big body, and he goes, "Where do you work out?" And the guy with the big head goes, "At the library," because he has a big muscly head. Abigail looks like the guy with the little head and the big body from that meme. That's like the kind of like weird deformity, like super deformed look that he has. Just weird. He still makes me feel weird. You know, and then like I feel like right before that is characters like Hugo, where Hugo is intentionally, I think, made to look a little off-putting, like kind of creepy, a little bit weird. He's like big giant proportions, and like his tiny sunken in eyes, and the fact that he just kind of like shakes around. The fact he's like huge. He's like a kind of an unsettling sort of character, but I think that's the point. He's like intimidating in like a freakish sort of way. You don't know what's going on with him. So like there's even designs in this like in the like very cartoony style that start to sort of like really push the limits of the art style and what's realistic. How is Blanca gonna look in like super realistically rendered? Is he just gonna be like a literal monster? I'm genuinely curious. I might have to look up. Let me look up some screenshots of. I haven't gotten the chance to play DMC5. I wonder if like they have any good comparison points, because that's the engine that we're working in. DMC5 like monsters or something. Oh geez, these things look freaky. I'm trying to like see if I could find like a decent render of like something that might like remind me of it. Does Monster Hunter run on the RE engine yet? I don't think so. Does it? Tell me down below. Tell me down below if it runs on the RE engine. I could maybe see it if they just make him look like really beast-like maybe just a big muscly guy, except he's green, and he's gonna look like his portrait from CVS2 in Shinkuro's art style. Because he's one of those designs that really works in 2D, and then when you try to make it more realistic, he just always ends up looking a little strange. There's that in the Street Fighter movie, it's oh, he's just a orange guy. Is he even in the movie? I don't know. He's in the game adaptation of the movie, and he's just an orange guy with frizzy hair. It's looks like Carrot Top. Looks like yeah, he looks okay in 5. I think he looks a little odd. Yeah, what's a character like that look like? I wonder if there's any more weird. What's gonna be the hardest? What's gonna be the hardest design to translate? I'm curious. Honestly, maybe something like Blanca. Maybe, I don't know. For the most part, they generally stay fairly realistic. I hope Abigail's not coming back. I could be fine if Abigail never shows up in a Street Fighter game again. Yeah. Jeez Louise. That's kind of my basic thoughts on the Street Fighter 6 reveal. It's my basic thoughts. It's really all my thoughts. I just spent the last hour just spilling about them. I'm curious. They said more info coming in the summer, so only a few months away. Yeah, and guess what? I will be talking about it. Next thing I want to talk about is KOF 15. Again, I said this was a fighting game episode, and you're gonna like it. So KOF 15, I've mentioned it a few times, talked about some of the trailers, some of the my thoughts on it going in. So it came out the other day. I had the chance to boot it up, get into it, play a few matches online, do some combo trials and all that, and I've explored the game a little bit. Not fully. Haven't had quite enough time. I've been working a lot. But okay, I'm gonna start from literally the very beginning. Number 1, SNK needs to get their shit together with the keybinds. And that might sound weird. But so, okay. Let me break this down for you. So I play on PC, and I use a keyboard. I have not built my hitbox yet. I would like to, but the metal enclosures are always sold out. So for now, I'm relegated to playing the game on a keyboard. And I've played fighting games on a keyboard forever. I have always played them on a keyboard for years and years and years now. Since 2017. Well, how long ago was it? 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. For 6 fucking years, I've been playing fighting games on a keyboard. I don't mind. Here's the thing. So, on a keyboard, generally, what you do is, the way you bind your keys is that a lot of people choose to do their movement keys A, S, and D, and then up is the space bar. And that's for a variety of reasons. But basically, it just comes down to, it's a lot more convenient to have the space bar, and because you're jumping a lot in fighting games. Well, in some games you are, but it's important. It's good to have that function at just the press, on a dedicated finger, let's say, on your thumb, right? Because otherwise you're swapping your middle finger between going from S and W, and that can be really cumbersome. And for certain characters, like charge characters who have like down up inputs, can make it really difficult to actually do those kinds of special moves. Whereas just having it on like hold down S, tap spacebar and the button, oh my god, I got my down up charge move. Yeah, so it's just generally agreed upon that is a good way to. That's the standard setup for keyboard, and it mimics. It was kind of mimicked off of how hitboxes are, like the layout of a hitbox controller. So obviously, first thing that I do in game is I go to key bindings. And I go to set up to spacebar. And I can't do it because spacebar is already bound. What is spacebar bound to? The start key, of course. Why? Why is spacebar the start button when you have the enter button? And even if you wanted enter to be something else, what about like backspace? What about tab? What about any other button that people don't regularly use? Why would you put it on spacebar? And mind you, this is a problem because you cannot change it. You cannot replace it, for instance, with having like you can't replace up with space. You can't bind up to spacebar and then set that key to something else, like set enter to another thing. No. It's hard coded. It's always going to be enter. What the fuck? Why? Why the fuck is it like this? How can you release a PC? This is such a simple, just usability thing. I'm trying to think of like an example in a different genre. It's like imagine you were playing, let's see, an FPS, right? And what's like a commonly used button? I'm trying to even think of something that's as stupid as this. Imagine you're playing like an FPS, and your crouch, like whatever the standard crouch key is, right? Like for most games, it's just control. What if that was just like pause the game and you couldn't change it? And you're like, well, fuck, now I gotta find, well, I want to have like sprint on shift. Like, fuck, what do I put crouch on? Where the fuck do I put on Q? No, I have Q mapped to the, like my melee. Oh, this is fucking annoying. That's what I'm feeling like. I don't know if that's a great comparison, but like, I am literally not allowed. This is like the most competitive way, like accepted way of like configuring your keyboard controls. And it's literally impossible. It's hard coded into the game. You cannot bind up to spacebar. Why the fuck not? Just like infuriating, honestly, and frankly unacceptable. I'm that kind of guy, right? Like if I can't bind, I just have stupid arbitrary rules about what I can and can't bind things to, that annoys me. It's like, why? It's a usability thing, unless it's like a really specific. I had the literally last episode, I had this thing about like you can't bind dodge in dodge to the shift key in Fury, right? Let's see. I'm actually curious now. King of Fighters 15. If there's a way, config OSS EO. No. 5. I'm looking at if there's like a config file. Saved? Save games? No. It doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like it. Yeah. The fact that there's no way to bind it like that is, yeah, it's stupid. It's stupid, and it's like, frankly, like a ridiculous oversight. And I'm being serious about that. Like as a player, that like actively hinders my experience from playing your game. And it's ridiculous because that's how every other fucking keyboard player plays the game. Maybe not all of them, but that's like a standard accepted thing. Why would you do this? This is the same problem I had with the ports of their other games, 2002 and 98, that just made it like I hated playing those because it was so hard to navigate the freaking menus. I was able to bind up to space in those, but like it was still enter on the menus. It was like stupid. It was just completely unnecessary. So what I had to do was download a key mapper. Literally, I had to download, it's called ATN Soft Key Remapper. And to be fair, I will endorse this software. It's extremely lightweight. It works very well. It does exactly what you want it to. All it does is allow you to, it lets you pick a key on your keyboard and then pick which key you want to replace it with when you press it. That's all it does. You can have it set to even be like mimic the press of this key, mimic the release of this key, have it be like synchronous, so like you press and release, and the key you remapped it to does the same. It's like the same input. It's good. You can create multiple profiles for different purposes. It is a good piece of software, and it's helped me play the game. And every time I boot the game up, I have to open up Key Remapper because there's no other way to play it. There's no other way. I'm not gonna I don't want to play. One of the characters that I'm playing is Hydern. He's a charge character. He has a down-up charge motion. Like, ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So that was really obnoxious. And I'm going to say it one more time, unacceptable to release a game like that on PC. Everything else is good. Okay. Rant over. Everything else is good of what I've played. So number one, the presentation in this game is really nice. It's basically just a graphic. It's basically KOF 14, but with a much revised lighting engine. The game looks cel shaded. It looks a lot more nice. Pardon me. It looks a lot nicer than 14, which just looks very flat and lifeless, unfortunately. 15 has a lot more energy in it. The effects look pretty good. Some of the, I will always say Dolores' mud effects look really bad, but to be fair, a lot of the other characters' effects look pretty good. I really like the. I mentioned. Did I mention it? I really like Hydern's effects. I think his like slashy energy stuff. It looks good and like painful. It looks like it gets across like his whole fighting style. Let's see. So basically, like I jumped into it, and my team, I was like, okay. I was thinking Kula, Hydern, and then I was going to pick a third. I was going to figure one out. And the first character who really jumped out to me was King of Dinosaurs. I love that he's a guy in a dinosaur costume, and he bites people, and he throws people around. And I wanted to try him out. So I tried him out, and I was like, maybe, is this not working? So the other characters felt fine. Kula, I really like. I just like Kula in general. She has her new snowman move. She summons a snowman and it falls down. Love that. Hydern is cool still. He's different, a little different from previous games. He's got that new finger gun move. That's a fun one. And yeah, I just really love his neutral buttons. I love his normals. That's like one of the most important things in a character for me, is like I just love how his normals feel. He just got these really like long reaching strikes and jabs and kicks and all that. And even if he can't like quite convert all of them, it's still just fun to use, just like slug it out in the close to mid range. So then I was like, okay, well, I like these characters, so they're pretty much locked in for the time being. Locked into my team. Pardon me. Let me try King of Dinosaurs. So I tried him out. He's got some cool stuff. I like that his voice lines are all kind of muffled. I like that he has this command grab where he jumps up and then he kind of lands on you and starts biting at you. And one of his voice lines, he goes, "Cabron." That's sick. But I wasn't exactly feeling him in the gameplay department. Like, he might not be for me. Right? Like, I don't know, he's very slow, and I don't mind playing slow characters all the time, but his ability to, like, convert off of pokes and stuff, like, he had kind of stubby normals, and I'm not super into that. Or they felt stubby. It was I was just kind of grappling with the character. Literally. And then I played this guy online. I'll get to the online in a minute. I played this guy online, and he was playing Luong. And I was never interested in Luong. She, just, her design didn't interest me. Yeah, that's it. I just kind of glossed over her. And then he does this move. I didn't even know what, like, she really did besides, oh, she's like a kick lady. He does this move where she, like, goes into a little stance where she has her leg up. And then he does a little lash with the leg. Like, she does a quick kick in a direction. And I'm like, that reminds me of Yamazaki's move. Reminds me of Ryuji's move, where he goes into a stance and then he punches with his arm super fast and either like up, mid, or down, depending on which button you press. I love that move. I love Yamazaki. Yamazaki's so cool. He's the coolest. So I was like, does she have a move like that? So I go and check out Luong, and then I'm like, oh, she literally has the same move. It's the same move. The only difference I can tell is that she can like dash out of it to cancel it. But other than that, it's literally the same move. You do a quarter circle forward, then A, B, or C for high, mid, or low. And she does a kick in that direction. And it's like, oh, this move is so fun. So I immediately go to her combo trials, and I'm like, dude, why did no one tell me Luong is the most fun fucking character in this game? She is so sick. I fucking love her moveset. She is so much fun, dude. She's so much fun. Everything on her just feels intuitive. Her whole playstyle or her whole kit is like, she has... Well, first of all of her inputs are quarter circles. That's a win for me. Win in the Taigen book. Simple inputs. Love it. As much as I like Kula, I don't like comboing into a DP motion off of her ice skate like spin. Luong, all quarter circles, and they're all kick attacks. She does use her punches in like her arms and her fists and in like her punch normals, but all of her specials use her legs. She's a very leg based fighter. So she's got that like, I forget what it's called, but the lash kick lash move, right? And then she has a move where she just does like a crescent kick upwards and it launches, and then she has another move where she does these like little like hop kicks in like standing, just like pop pop pop, it's not raising off the ground like the crescent kick. What are her other? She has like one more. She has like one where she kind of like flies forward and does a little arcing kick too. And it seems like a simple moveset. This might be one that I'm forgetting. It seems like a simple moveset, but oh my god, it's so much fun because of the properties of all of her moves. So that like crescent kick, right? It launches, and you can do like, her combos are extremely like intuitive, in the sense that in other games, or let's say even other characters in this game, other characters, things combo because of like a set of like sort of abstract rules around like frame data and rules about which moves can cancel into which moves. Luong's combos work where it's like a lot of it is just stuff that makes sense, like visually. So like she has her little step kicks move, right? Where she does a kick with one leg and then she does a kick with another leg on the ground. And the EX version of that move launches the opponent full screen, and then they bounce off of the wall. You get a big wall bounce out of it. So she does, so just like, here's like just a basic combo, right? So you do the EX kicks, you get a wall bounce, and then as they're bouncing back towards you, you do like the heavy crescent kick, and the kick rises up, lifts up, and slashes, and it intercepts them as they're falling towards you, and then they get knocked back towards the wall and they bounce off again. Then you can do the light version for like the angle and to come out faster and all that. And then they bounce off the wall again. And then at this point, you could do another like crescent kick move, but there's kind of like an invisible sort of like juggle limit in the game that you sort of get a feel for like how many attacks can this, the way I think it works is that like there's like an untech time where basically if you get hit in the air, there's like a certain amount of time before your character will just recover, and you'll be invincible until you land on. You can't like do anything, but you're invincible till you land on the ground. So you tech in the air. And I think that like certain moves will add or like subtract untech time or something like that. So like if you hit with like a third crescent kick after you get another wall bounce, it'll hit, but they'll immediately fall out of it, and you can't do anything else. And they'll hit the ground, and they'll be like back on their feet again. So what you can do is you can time it so that you do the high angled version of like the leg lash kick, which doesn't subtract as much like untech time. So they're still in the air, they're still in that like helpless state. And then as they're falling again, you do like a heavy grounded kicks, heavy step kicks, and they basically fall right onto it, and that kind of like keeps them in place. It has this kind of vacuum effect. It sort of keeps them in place, so they'll be hit with every hit of the move, and then you can combo that into, you can basically cancel that on hit into a super, and if you're in max mode, you can cancel that and that super into another super, and basically like you can just do. It all starts with this like really, it's like a very like visual kind of like combo system where it's like, or combo structure for her, where it's like you get the launcher and the wall bounce, and then you hit them with a move while they're in the air, then you hit them with another move, and then you hit them with another move, and then as they're falling, you hit them with another move. And like those are the rules behind how like her combos work. And they're really fun and intuitive, and I just spent like 10, 15, 20 minutes in training mode coming up with stuff for her. I came up with this definitely very unoptimized combo in the corner where you do like, it's like heavy crescent kick and then EX crescent kick, which will keep them juggled in the air. And then I do a little high angled leg lash to again like keep them juggled. This was before I even saw the combos of people doing that stuff. I just kind of like ended up figuring that out. That the high angled lash will just like not, they won't recover from it midair. Then you do that, and then actually literally this like kind of like the same sort of ender is then I just did like step kicks, heavy step kicks, and into super. Like very rough combo, but I was so proud when I came up with it. It was really fun. This character is so cool. I haven't had the chance to take her online yet. Just because I had stuff to do. But I did manage to mess around with her in training mode. I did her combo trials. So much fun. I just wish her colors were better. Luong's design was, I think, one of the things that gave me a big hang-up. She's a very KOF 14 design, because that's the game that she came from. She has, like, it's not bad. I don't think it's bad. It's just kind of boring, in my opinion. She's a sexy lady. She's a sexy leg lady. And that's cool, and I don't mind that. It's just, it just needs a little more, like, spice, you know? It's just the design needs a little more sauce, like, stuff going on. But, like, not in a KOF 14 way. Okay, so my problem with a lot of the KOF 14 designs is that characters got changes that just made them look busier. It just made their designs busier, and they just had more stuff going on visually that didn't actually enhance the design. I think the best example I think of that, for me at least, is like Vice and Mature. Like, I really like, I've liked playing Mature in the past, right? And in the original, like her original design, she and Vice, they're both like sexy, evil secretaries, sort of. The sexy thing isn't like super out there. Like it's there. They're kind of like a sort of like a femme fatale way, but they're like evil secretaries, right? They have like it's like the dress with the vest kind of thing with the diamond in it, like the diamond shape on it on the middle. And then the skirt of the dress has this like leg. It's like a long skirt, and then there's like a leg slit, and that's sort of like the sort of. I think even in like the concept art, like they have a little cleavage popping out, that kind of thing. So it's kind of like sexy evil secretary. That's their thing. They're secretaries for the guy who wants to become devil guy, and they're in a cult. So those designs are very like of the time, where I would always say I'd say that like the classic SNK fighters, and like including King of Fighters, because it's just the big crossover for a lot of them, or it started out that way, then it just became the main series. They all take place in like urban martial arts town, like 80s urban martial arts movie town, if that makes sense. Like Fatal Fury, Art of Fighting, KOF, all of these series, they all take place in this like sort of like an 80s, just I don't know, this is the best way I can describe it. They feel like they take place in an 80s kung fu movie from like Hong Kong, or something like that, where it's like urban and it's a little gritty, but it's a little, there's a bit of a kind of a zany fantastical element to it. Not super much, and it does have that like people throwing around energy blasts and all that stuff, but just kind of like the sort of world that they inhabit, right? And in that sense, Vice and Mature's original designs work really well, because they feel like this they feel like a sort of that sort of like fantastical reality of that kind of a movie, right? Like if you want to know what I'm talking about, look up. Let me see if I can find like on like a Google search that pulls it up immediately. Was it King of Fighters or Art of Fighting? Or Fatal Fury Geese. Geese artwork? Yeah, okay. It's one of the first results. If you look at Fatal Fury Geese artwork, it's the Shinkuro art where does it feel like it's a poster? I don't even know if it was a poster. It's geese sitting in the chair. It's geese sitting in a chair, like a plush red chair. He's in a suit, and behind him, he's in this like some kind of like a very like wealthy looking kind of setting. Who was texting me? Oh, it's Cat. He's in this very wealthy looking setting, and to his left and right there's like guys in suits with sunglasses, like bodyguards, and then next to his chair is Billy with his like big cane. Wait, is that what he's called? Billy Cane? Because he has the big staff? Billy with like his red like pole arm staff, like the unfolding one, and his like red and white stripy bandana, and he's kind of like turned to the side looking towards the camera. It's such a sick piece of art. He's got his legs crossed. He looks like it. This image is so classic. It looks like the poster for an 80s movie, right? Like it looks like this is the big bad guy who's like the he's the head of a business that is like a shady, it's like a front for a shady gang thing, and then the main character martial artist confronts him at the end of the movie, and he rips off his suit, and he's in like the fucking full on, I mean, it's literally geese. He rips off the suit and he's in the full on like martial artist like get up with like the gi and the big like flappy like red pants, you know, the classic like Geese Howard design. That's exactly like what the image that I get from this picture. That's like the kind of world in that kind of a setting. Vice and Mature is sort of like a secretary. In real life, a secretary wouldn't really wear that, right? You know, they wouldn't really wear something like that. This is like, it feels like it's a movie. It feels like it's maybe one in like a kind of unrealistic, sort of goofy movie would, or cheesy kind of action movie would. And then you get to KOF 12, I believe, and you get an update. The designs get updated. You're like, well, how would you update? Pardon me. Like, how do you update those character designs? And they put them in, basically what they did is they put them in pantsuits. And you see that and you're like, that's the design, okay? That's the new look. That looks great. I think that their designs in 12 and 13 look great. I think like, I'm just gonna, hang on. Mature KOF like 13. Like, they look great. It does a fantastic job of retaining all the elements of the original design, like the key elements and things that are supposed to like be communicated to you about the design, while updating it in a modern kind of like tasteful way, right? Like I'm just looking at like Mature, for instance, but Vice too. Like they both have like, so basically what you do is like, what's happening is, how do I want to start this sentence? How would I like to start this sentence? What's happening is basically you're taking that original kind of plate, sort of like unrealistic look, or type of like outfit, and you're saying, okay, well, what does like a more modern business woman, office woman look like? And you're like, oh, something like a pantsuit. That's kind of like a very, I would say, more modern look for like a businesswoman, right? As like over the years, there's more like women in the workplace and all that in like corporate jobs. That's kind of just like a more associated piece of clothing, right? So you get like, okay, you get what they're supposed to be, but you still have the element of like, they're still sexy, which is like what they were in their original looks. They still have that like sexy thing going on, but it's like a classy kind of sexy, right? Like they're a bit of the cleavage is showing, but it's not like a lot. It's not a lot. It's just like they're just kind of showing off a little bit, but like the pantsuit, like the outfit is very like form fitting. It like kind of hugs their shapes. So you get a lot of like, the idea is that like they're sexy without letting on. What's sexier is what's not being shown, is I think the idea of the redesign. So you still have that element of like kind of sexy in like a classy kind of mysterious way, because also the twist is they're evil cult members and Vice eats people. Great redesigns, like so awesome. You're like, this is the look from now on. The next 20 games, this is what they're going to look like. And then in 14, they just like, why? What? So let me look up them in 14. What they did in 14 was they took that like great design and they were like, okay, what if we took the same idea, except now they're going to have the biggest thing that stands out to me is the weird open slits on like the shoulders. Why from like the shoulder to the, not even like the whole arm, there's just like an open window. Why? What is the point of that? And then like I don't think the white looks great, to be honest. I don't think the white in the new design, like the vest, the new white vest, like I get it's kind of like a reference to the original, but like and then also like the weird way that like the shirt kind of like frills out at the bottom, and the collar, like the collar on the vest thing, it looks almost like leather. It's really strange. And it's like, it's almost approaching like a DOA character. Not quite, but it's like, it's getting to that, like, why does the character just have all of these weird, erroneous details to make them look sexier? That's the problem I think a lot of the designs in 14 have, is they just kept adding stuff that doesn't make the character look better. It just makes them have more stuff going on, right? They just have more things, and it just clutters up the design compared to the really simple, nice thing, like look that they had from before. Kyo sort of has, like, if you look up Kyo in 14, he's like, what's going on, dude? Like, I get the look. They're trying to like pay it's like an homage to his white vest, or like his white jacket look, but there's just so much just pointless detail, like belts and pockets and pouches, and like, what's going on here? It strays so far away from like the simplicity of the original, and even like the coolness of the updated. Like, I really like White Vest Kyo that he had later on, but this one is just like too much. So when you look at him in 15 and you're like, this is perfect. I really like the way that they've updated a lot. I like a lot of the redesigns in 15. I think Kyo in 15 looks great. He's got just enough going on. He looks like an appropriately, for the amount of time that's passed, appropriately aged up. He's not a high schooler anymore. If he looks like he's like a college kid, right? He's got the leather jacket that's got just enough little details. It's got his little sun emblem on the sleeve with a little zipper. It's not too much. He's got the blue jeans and just a white shirt. Great, cool. Just a white undershirt, and he's got the white headband back. So much better. Just a cleaner looking design overall. You get everything you need to know about him, and it's not like, and it's like really fast. Like, you look at Kyo, you're like, oh, this is martial arts guy, but like kind of urban martial arts guy. Like he's wearing kind of like street clothes and all that, as opposed to some guy like Ryo, who's like Ryu with an O, that type of thing. So like, that's good. What was I saying? I was going Luong, right? That's just my general opinions on the art style direction. Luong, what does she look like in 14? Luong KOF 14. Basically the same. Basically the same in general. Like, obviously the 15, the faces just look so much better in 15. Yeah, she's got pretty much the same thing going on, and it's like, I just wish that there was more of like an idea to her character besides like she's got a Chinese dress sort of thing. I just like characters when they have like a strong theme, and I just don't get a very strong theme out of Luong. And she's just got kind of like little details. She's got all these like little crisscrossing knots on her shoulders that ends in like a tassel. It's like, okay, the design doesn't really like speak anything specific to me besides she's sexy, which is like fine, but there's other characters who are sexy in like interesting ways in 15, in the series in general. I was thinking about this, like, why doesn't Shermie feel like she's too much? Because you look at Shermie's design, you're like, holy Jesus fucking Christ. But it doesn't feel like too much. And I was trying to think of why. And I was racking my brain. Because this was a point that also, to bring back Max, he did like a rate the designs. That was a fun video. And he's like, he couldn't pin it down. Like, why does Shermie look more like, why doesn't she like go over the edge in the way that something like the diamond bikini in like Dead or Alive do, right? And I think the main difference is that Shermie is wearing something that like I could see a real person wearing. Like, if you look at Shermie's design in 15, it is like, whoa. But like, if like Doja Cat showed up one day wearing that at like a concert or an event or something, you wouldn't bat an eye. Well, you would bat an eye because it's Doja Cat. But like, it would be totally reasonable, right? And for who Shermie is, I mean, Shermie is literally a musician. That's kind of, she's like a sexy rock singer. Is she the singer of the band? I don't know what each of the band members play in her band, but she's like a sexy musician. She's like leaning into that. That's sort of her deal, right? And it feels like just enough that you're like, this is something that like a hypersexualized or a hypersexual musician who's like making a fashion statement would wear, right? And it makes sense. It makes sense for her, as opposed to something like the diamond bikinis, where it's like the only time you're gonna see this is like a gravure photo shoot, right? Like a softcore porn photo shoot. That's why when you see it, you feel like you're looking at softcore porn. And that's what makes Dead or Alive feel skeevy compared to like this game, right? Because even characters like Angel, right? Angel's a very like, oh my god, kind of design. But like you kind of know her character, and you're like, this sort of makes sense that she wears this weird fucking outfit with like assless chaps. It's like whole like ass and like inner thigh less chaps, and like a thong, and like giant cowboy boots, and like a big vest, and that's just it. That she's wearing a leather vest. It's like zipped up, doesn't even cover her like midriff. And then you kind of like see her design, her in motion, and you kind of get an idea of her attitude. And she's just weird, right? She's just weird. You're like, something's off with her. And she's doing her own thing. Her clothing feels kind of like modified, right? Which is like, isn't she like a genetic experiment? I feel like she's like a Nest's person. She was like grown in a lab or something like that. And you're like, it makes sense that she looks weird, right? I feel like it's also like, I don't know what kind of a context On Hell would fit into, but it feels like real clothes is the thing. It feels like real clothes that aren't specifically picked out for like a softcore porn photo shoot. I think that's what makes something feel skeevy as opposed to not. Yeah. And there's like probably some design. I think Dolores is kind of pushing it. I like Dolores, but I like her design for a very simple reason. And if you look at her design, you can probably tell what it is. It's because she has really cool glasses. Man, her mud effects look really bad. That definitely balances it out for me. Yeah, so that's my thoughts on the art style, I guess. The game looks good. The game looks quite good. Definitely better than when they first showed it off. I was kind of looking back at the original, like some of the older trailers, and I was like, this game looks a lot better. Just the effects look a little cleaned up and not quite as like watery as I felt like they were. Where it feels like the fire effects kind of look like orange Fanta. Yeah, what else? Oh, the online is quite good. I have not had any problems. I've only played a couple matches, but the ones that I played functioned very well. I have no problems with that. Apparently there's some problems on the PC version with screen tearing. I haven't personally run into that. It might be because I have an AMD graphics card, but I've heard that when people talked about like a fix for it, they mentioned going into the NVIDIA like controls panel. So it might be a problem specifically with NVIDIA cards. I have not had a problem with it. The soundtrack is actually like pretty good. I'm into a lot of the songs on the soundtrack. Really, do yourself a favor. Go listen to the victory theme. It starts off with like a little lick, and it sounds like it's it, but then it's quiet for a few seconds, and then like a really cool little song kind of comes on. I like it a lot. Yeah, the game feels good. I think it's like interesting. I want to touch very briefly on, we're running out into like 2 hours, but I want to touch really quickly on the weird inputs in this game. So like KOF has this thing where they're always crazy with the inputs, and in fact there's like combos where you just kind of have to know, you basically have to exploit the way that the game reads inputs to pull them off, and the game kind of expects you to know how to do this. And there's an argument. So like what I mean is, let's take a simple example. So I was doing Ryo's combo trials. So Ryo has a Shoto move set. Got a quarter circle forward. He's got a DP motion. He's got all that. So there's one where you have to do like heavy fireball into like light uppercut. So heavy fireball like lifts them off the ground a little bit, and then and then the uppercut picks it up, right? Follows up on that as they're falling. So that is a quarter circle forward punch, and then forward down, down forward punch. And if you do those as separate motions, it's kind of a pain in the ass. It's really like, ugh, man, my hands. However, there's a much easier way to do it, and that is to do quarter circle forward punch, quarter circle forward punch. Like, what? How does that work? You're just doing 2 quarter circles. Well, actually, what you're doing is you're doing a quarter circle forward to get the fireball, and then you end the motion on forward. So because the uppercut needs a forward, down, down, forward, what you can do is just do quarter circle forward punch to make that a fireball, and then go from your forward position back to down and then forward again. So instead of having to do it as 2 separate motions, you're kind of doing it as one motion, just one double fireball motion, except you are breaking up. You're throwing in a button in between, and that will work. That works. There are examples everywhere of stuff like this, absolutely everywhere, of combos like this and moves that work like interact in that kind of a way. And it's really daunting at first. Where you're like, geez, I have done all this hidden shit, but you kind of start to like understand the logic behind it, and it kind of becomes sort of really cool. So like that was one example that I just figured out on my own, but there's other stuff that people have figured out where like super input. So a lot of the level 3 supers in this game, it's like it'll be like a quarter circle back, half circle forward, and like 2 buttons. So quarter circle back, half circle forward. Geez, okay. And you have to like combo into that from another motion, right? So people have like figured out that what you can do is it's not actually a half circle back, quarter circle back, half circle forward. You can actually do a quarter circle back and then just a quarter circle forward because of the way that the game reads inputs. It's very kind of like loose and open, and as long as you have enough of the motions in there, like the directions, it will read it when you press the button to like confirm. That like pressing the button like confirms that was the move you wanted. So let's say you have like a quarter circle back motion, and you're comboing that move into quarter circle back, half circle forward. You already have a quarter circle in that super motion, right? So you do quarter circle back button, and then quarter circle forward button, and it goes from the special move into the super. And it's like, oh, and you just it's kind of cool because you start to like, you look at combos, and you kind of start to see these little hidden motions everywhere in the game, and like you're sort of just like seeing all of these like places and spots that you could potentially fit in or that you could like fit in the next motion or something. It's actually kind of neat. And I saw an argument that was like the fact that you have to do these things that are like basically secret, like basically exploits, is reason enough to not have these kinds of motions in the game. And I think that's fair. That's a fair opinion to have. But like, it's kind of cool to do. It's kind of cool to be like, hey, wait, hang on a second. Could I do like this into this? And then like it works and you're like, oh, whoa, that's so much easier. Like you learn the tricks. Yeah, it's fun. It's been fun so far. I'm still getting a hang. I'm still in my first like few sessions. I'm still getting the hang of the way that the game kind of works and control. It is so easy to short hop in this game. It is unbelievable. It is so much easier to short hop in this game than in 98 or 2002. I've had no problem. Part of that is maybe just because I'm playing on keyboard, But yeah, even in those older games, playing on keyboard, it was hard to like consistently do short hops. Now I can get a lot more consistently. I'm not like perfect with it, and it's hard to like coordinate enough to do like jump ins and stuff like that with it. So I haven't like really wrapped my head around the way that KOF neutral works quite yet, but I'm enjoying enough of the game that I'm really I want to go back in. Like I have the urge to go in and like lab Luong combos, and I'm not like a lab monster, right? I get like a few combos that I like, and then I just head online, and that's like my deal. But this is like sometimes I run into characters where it's like I want to sit in training mode and I want to see if I can do a cool looking thing that is just intuitive, right? If I get this hit, can I bounce them over here and then hit them with this and then do this and that? And she is scratching that itch for me right now. God damn, good job on designing that character. I wish her colors were better. But anyway, I have been talking for long enough. Yeah, so if you have been listening this far, watching this far, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks everyone who's been checking out the new channel. I'm going to try and hopefully grow this out more. And I'm going to do this no matter what, so I'm sticking with it, so don't worry, even if the growth is really slow. Because I just think that this podcast is fun, and I love talking to you guys. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Please phrase it in the form of the question, because I will not just read your thoughts out loud. Thank you for all the support on the channel. All right. I'm signing off. Goodbye.